Carlos Nelson with Cascade Sports. Tonight we have the head track coach for Central State University, which is my alma mater. Who do we have here?
James Rollins.
Hey, James.
Class of 96.
96. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself. As I said off camera, I like for my coaches to talk about how they arrived at their coaching position wherever they're at. Run it down from your high school or junior high school all the way to where you're at now.
It's funny that you asked. You mentioned junior high school. I ended up being national champion in the 110 high hurdles, and the first time that I went out for track and field was in junior high school. Coach Dennis Black, great brother. I ended up asking him, could I run hurdles? And he was like, nah, you're too short. I was 8th grade, I was 7th, 8th grade, I was really small. And he was like, Rollins, you're too small, man. Go on. You just go ahead and run this quarter mile, you know. Being a youngin', nobody liked the quarter miler, right?
Nobody. I told you I was a quarter miler.
Yeah, you can imagine the, 11, 12-year-old guy, being told to do the quarter mile, he really didn't like it. So I ended up like, Coach, we was at a track meet, like, Coach, just check me out. This one time, he was like, Rollins, I just took off and jumped over the hurdle. He's like, be right back, see if I can get you in the hurdles, So he saw me go over the one hurdle, and he was convinced. And, I've been running hurdles ever since. So that's how I got started in, running the hurdles, and got started in track and field. And then I went on to high school. I'm from Toledo, Ohio. Went to Toledo Libbey. Graduated in 1989, where I was coached by David Merritt. Good fella. I ended up being a second in the city. Made it out to regionals. Didn't quite make it to state. But once I got to college is where I really bloomed. I was a late bloomer, even in high school. I went into high school, I was 5'2", 89 pounds, I remember those stats so clearly because the wrestling coach, I played football and went out for basketball, and I went out to play, I went out to the trial for the squad, and the basketball coach looked at me and was like, nah, little man, you can't play. I'm like, let me get the ball, You're like, nah, you too little, I'm 5'2". And the wrestling coach was sitting over the sideline like, come on, young man, I got you, So anyway, I wrestled and then ended up, running track, and track and field was my thing. I love football. I love all the sports that I was in, but especially football and track. But track was my bread and butter. So I ended up getting a scholarship to go play football and run track at the University of Findlay. And I want to be a little transparent, growing up, I was a little had a little sheltered life. My parents were kind of strict, I'm glad for it, went to Findlay and, got from underneath my parents and kind of cut up a little bit there, and it's important to go to college with your mind right, you know what I'm saying? Otherwise you'll waste some time and money. And I got there, and the coaches were okay, they were cool, but the connection, and the relationship that I ended up having at Central State didn't compare, I ended up leaving Findlay. Well, to be honest, I got kicked out because, my grades weren't too great.
We talked about that off camera. Both of us had a similar story.
Yeah. So my grades weren't good at all, and I played football. I got through the season, but I never ended up running track because my grades were too bad. And they ended up letting me go. I think that, you know, this is to speak to how great Central State was and how family oriented they were. It was like night and day, you know. Nothing against, you know, Finley, but once I got to Central State, you know,
It's
they
nothing like
embraced
an
me.
HBCU, man.
No, no, not at all, not at all. There's nothing like it, man. I got there, they embraced me, you know. They got me headed in the right direction, and they stayed on me. You know, they weren't exactly parents. You know, my coach wasn't exactly a parent, but he kind of was. You know, like an uncle, where hey, you know, come here, boy. You know, you need to be doing this. You know, and we respected him for that. You know, Josh Colbert. You know, he's from Philly, and you know, he coached at Central State for I think about 10 years. But a lot of Olympians came out of Central State at that time in the 90s, and we called him Pop. You know, and Pop just he kept me in the right track. You know.
That's right.
So ended up running there. I actually walked on, which wasn't an easy thing. Like I said, there was a lot of great talent at that time. Yeah. We had a few people from all over the world. You know, we had people from Jamaica. We had people from Nigeria. We had people.
That was my roommate, Tony Ingawinga. He was the ankle leg that back in the 70s for Nigeria. I was going to ask you if they still have Africans coming to the school.
Yeah. So we were a great milk pot. I mean, people from all over. So I was a walk-on. So they, you know, I'm just a little guy from Toledo, Ohio. You know, trying to get on with everybody else. You know, and I think at that time, sometime I got there in during that time, that stretch, we had quite a few Olympians. Deion Hemmings was one of them. She was Jamaica's first gold medalist in the Olympics. She won the 400 hurdles in the '92 Olympics. She was there. Carolyn Sterling, Sean Cooper. It was just a plethora of talent there. Yeah. So me getting there, you know, going to, you know, Coach Cobra's office and telling him I wanted to run hurdles. You know, I'm from Toledo. He's like, okay, you can try out, you know, and tried out. And, you know, for a long time, I was begging for workouts, you know, let alone, you know, getting to travel and everything. So make a long story short, yeah, I was a small guy and I kind of had my growth spurt, you know, so I kind of had the Napoleon complex where, you know, couldn't nobody tell me that I couldn't do it, you know. So I remember, you know, not really getting uniforms or shoes or all that stuff, you know, that the other teams was getting. You know, I'm just the guy from Toledo. And I remember one of my teammates, Dwayne Butcher, ended up giving me some spikes, you know. And that's what I used to, you know, practice in and all that stuff. And I ended up, like I said, a long story short, I ended up winning the NAIA national title in the 110 high hurdles my freshman year.
Go, boy,
and,
go.
And a lot of that had to do with, I remember spring break, they would go to Jamaica. We had probably about, 3/4 of our team was Jamaican, and we would go to Jamaica for spring break and running a few meets there. Well, they sent me, which was ironic, to Findlay, Ohio to run in a track meet there while they went to spring break in Jamaica. And I remember like yesterday, I'm getting in the blocks and it's in March, and you know, it don't, in Ohio, it don't get warm until like May, you know. So this is like March, you know, late March, and I see a snowflake flickering down as I'm coming in the block. I was so mad, man. I said, they will never leave me again. And I ended up winning, you know, the national title in the 110 high hurdles that year, and then, you know, the rest is history.
So talk about how long have you been the head coach there?
Been the head coach at Central for 7 years. This is my 7th season this year. Yeah.
All right. Run that down. What that first year was. Central was your first head coaching position?
It was my first head coaching, yes. I started my collegiate coaching at Capital University, which is Division III school in Columbus, Ohio. I was a hurdle coach there. And before that, I had my own AAU USA track and field track spot.
All right. Tell me this. What was it like when you landed your head coach position? Give me your emotional, what was that feeling like? And how, were you married by then?
I'm sorry, say it again.
I said, what was that feeling like? And were you married by when you got your first head coach position?
As a matter of fact, I was getting a divorce.
Oh, all right.
I got my first head coach. I was, the feeling was a good one, of course. I remember sitting talking to our athletic director at the time, which was Jahan Cobrath. He was actually the assistant coach when I was in school, so he kind of brought me on.
All right.
I remember talking to him, and I'm trying to recruit. I'm trying to manage the kids that I have. I'm trying to do all this stuff in personal life. And I remember him sitting me down, and he was like, he asked me a question. He said, which do you like? Do you like being an assistant coach or the head coach? And I couldn't answer that first. He said, let me help you out. You're like, assistant coach is fun because you get to coach and you get to go home. Head coach is rewarding, but you're responsible for everything. So it's not as fun, but it is rewarding. So that kind of summed up like what, how I was feeling, yeah, I could relate, just coming off of the assistant coaching position where.
Was he a mentor to you?
Yeah. He we talked throughout the years, not as much. When I first left Central, we talked a little bit, and then it was kind of like a gap, and then a couple of years before he hired me on, we kind of connected again. So
because that how he answered that question sound like he knew you, and you have wisdom to even say that to another coach. This is this and this is this. Now what's up?
Yeah. I mean, cause he kind of helped me to answer, cause I couldn't answer that first because I'm like, I don't know. I was excited, but then he kind of put it in perspective, like, yeah, that's true, cause I did have a lot of fun when I could just leave, But as a head coach, you put in the hours and you come in early and you leave late, and that's just part of the territory.
Now run down your seasons. You've been there 7 years. Where'd you start off and where are you at now?
When we first started, I had to kind of felt like when I was walking on the track team back in high school, in college, I kind of had to prove myself a little bit. Didn't have much, not much to budget, and didn't have a lot of resources. Matter of fact, the resources that I had in college was the same resources that I had when I became the coach. So it was like, wow, So it was tough the first year. 'Cause I kind of walked into a situation where I could only recruit off of campus the first year. It brought me in October. And the season, track season starts in the fall. So I kind of like was in the middle of cross country season when they brought me. So first year was really, really, really rough. And being able to get through that was a testament to, my resilience and, the character that I built as an athlete at Central State. So that first year was tough. Second year got a little better because we got, we had a chance to really do some recruiting, outside the campus and do my, bring in the kids that, that I wanted. Again, we still didn't have a lot of resources. So I had to learn how to make it work. The first couple of years, during spring break is huge for track and field because, we're in Ohio. And like I said before, it doesn't get warm. We don't have an indoor facility. We practice in the back gym in Walker Gym. I'm sure you're familiar with it.
I'm familiar with that and the backbone.
Right. Right. Yeah, I won't get to the backbone in a minute. I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, because I got to get recruit my kids, but like I said, we didn't have a lot of resources, so I had to be I had to show some initiative and kind of be creative. Using the Walker Gym, we did what we did there. We had pool workouts. We would go on the backbone, run some of those hills back there. But like as far as the schedule, I wanted to make the schedule one of our recruiting tools. Now we're getting, kind of fast forward a little bit, and I'm gonna come back. We are installing a new track as we speak.
I was going to ask you about that.
Year. I'm really excited. We've been practicing on this track that we're on now. That track is it was put in like 1989. So it's an older track. We can't even host track meets there because it needs some work done. But I'm really excited that we are getting a new one in and everything. So I'm pumped about that. But getting back to what I was saying, I was trying to make my schedule a part of my recruiting tool. Didn't have an indoor facility. Our track wasn't all that great. So I had to figure out, okay, how can I get these kids to want to be a part of our program? And so I started putting together a schedule that kids would like that would attract some kids, So we first started going down to Myrtle Beach for spring break. A lot of our meets were around Ohio. And it's pretty tough to really the training that you need in Ohio because the weather is so unpredictable,
Who you tell?
And it can be.
We used to go to Atlanta, Clark, and the schools down there on break to run, but you weren't in the shape that you needed to be in because of the weather.
Right. Exactly. Because down south it gets warm. It's warm in February. You know what I'm saying? It's not warm in Ohio consistently until May. So so what I tried to do was create a schedule that was attractive to my recruits. So then we started going to like Myrtle Beach for spring break, and when I first got here, we were in the GMAC. So like everybody was in the same kind of situation where everybody had to deal with the weather. So we were kind of cool there, and we finished second in that conference 2 years straight. With my first 2 years we were in the GMAC. We finished second in the conference 2 years straight, once indoor, once outdoor. And then we moved on to the SIAC, which, as you probably know, is made up of majority Southern teams. So it's HBCU. It's not all HBCU, but most of the teams in the SIAC are HBCU, and most of them are down south. We are the furthest school in the SIAC that's up north, you know? And so that created a challenge for us because everybody else gets to start running in February. And, you know, we're still in Walker Gymnasium, you know, trying to get into outdoor shape, you know? So I remember when we switched over from the GMAC to the SIAC, our first year, we got whooped, man. It was a wake up call, you know, because those teams were in great shape and we were nowhere close to getting in shape. So that kind of helped me to motivated me to you know, get me a better schedule to be able to contend with that. Anyway, so then what we started doing is going to starting our outdoor season in February, and we would travel down south to Georgia. And then we would go to
You're
Florida.
still bussing it?
For spring break. Yep. Well, I'm gonna tell you this. This is probably like probably around our second or third year. We were actually driving our vans down there. So it was my assistant coach and myself, and I would get some help from some other staff members, and we would drive to Florida. So yeah, bro. Yeah, it was whew. But it was.
How you gonna run after you've been all cooped up like that?
Right. I know. But what we would do, we would drive for 4 hour stop, eat breakfast, eat lunch, drive another 4 hours, and then we would stay in Atlanta. So that 8 hours would be Atlanta. We'll spend the night and get up and do it again the next morning, and we will be in Florida. So that kind of helped us to be able to, you know, make that trek all the way down to Florida. And then we would stay down there for probably about 10 days. So we got a lot of good training in. Yeah. So when we came back, which would be like, you know, the end of March, we were in pretty good shape. 'Cause we have 2 days down there, you know, we would take advantage of the weather, you know. So when we came back in March and April, we were good to go. You know, we could compete. You know,
you were ready then.
Right.
And if you weren't ready, you were right there at the doorstep.
Right. And with our conference championship is in April, you know, like the third week in April. So when we came back, we only had 3 weeks before we would go to our conference championship. So we would have to really, you know, be in some decent shape and kind of fine tune in those next 3 weeks so that we can compete in our conference championship. And, you know, we went from pretty much last place our first couple of years to moving all the way up to 4th place in our conference the last few years. So it's been a turnaround. We looked to.
Hey, Coach, I want to ask you because, boy, all our HBCUs are going through the same thing. You talked about when you got on this financial deal, man. It's just horrible.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You had to take some of your paycheck probably to feed some of the kids at different times. For real? Or am I wrong?
Well, I couldn't technically do that, but you know, it comes close to that. You know what I'm saying?
I'm saying just the HBCUs are not getting the sponsorship that they need to really run a full-fledged program in all of their sports. Unless they have you got a major football team and they're at the top, then a lot of money that are going into the athletic department is going all to that team, and it's shortchanging some of the other sports.
Yeah. But,
how do you feel about your athletic director? And this is what I usually ask the high school coaches also. I think how important is it to have your administration backing you?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. And I think well, everybody's been here for the transition because you know, Jahan was the AD. Now Tara is the AD, and she's done. I mean, both of them did a great job. But Tara's doing a wonderful job. This is, I think, her second year. She came in and established that she did have our back. She did want to support us. She did want to get us the things that we needed now. you know, have we gotten everything that we need? Of course not. I mean, like you said, we're HBCU, but she's fighting for us to really get the things that we need so that we can be successful.
That's what Coach Price said also.
Students. Yeah.
Price said she's doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, she's doing a good job at getting the things that we need so that we can be the best that we can, you know. And she's only been, I think she's been here just for a year. And, you know, like I said, we haven't gotten everything, but I feel like she's on her way to getting us all the things that we need, you know.
I know a couple of years ago, I think about 3 years ago, Magic Johnson came down there and gave you all $1 million.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully we get more donors like that, you know, to contribute to get us where we need to be.
Yeah. And Coach, so how do you see this virus playing out in regards to your season?
Unfortunately, it's actually canceled and you know, stopped our season. I was actually at the NCAA Division II Indoor Championships when, you know, they told us that, you know, we had less than 24 hours before my first athlete would compete, and they shut it down. You know, we had 2 nice hurdlers, Denisha Cartwright, which was leading the nation in the 60-meter women's hurdles, and she was also qualified in the 60 open, and then Juan Scott qualified in the 60-meter men's hurdles, and both of them had a great chance of winning both of them. Juan had won it a couple years ago and was contending to do the same this year. So it was tough for me personally because, you know, we're actually down there. We were scheduled to fly out, and, you know, Tara had a meeting with all the coaches and was like, James, I know that you are headed towards the national championship, but you can't fly. I'm like, oh, wow. You know, so I had to, you know, cancel my flight that night and find, you know, she's like, you can still go, but you can't fly because of this, you know, this Corona thing. And I'm like, okay, I never thought of not going because, you know, Juan Scott, you know, he's a senior, you know.
You don't want to drown their dreams.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And so I found a rental car, and we drove down there about 8.5 hours. Me and the other two kids, we drove down there, and we got ready. We were ready to go. And when they called me to tell me that we wouldn't run the next day, man, first thing I thought about was like, man, I got to tell these kids, you know. And when I brought them up, to talk to them, man, I can see, especially in Juan's eyes, man, he's you know, and Juan is from Dayton, so he's self-proclaimed, you know, tough guy, you know.
I'm the man.
Yeah. But when I had to deliver that news, man, I could see in his eyes, see how disappointed he was not to be able to, you know, finish his senior year. You know, last year he lost by 100th of a second, you know. He really, I think it was because, you know, the guy that beat him was all the way on this side and he was on this side. So, you know, it was hard to see. So he ended up losing by 100th of a second. So he had a bad taste in his mouth. So he was really ready to come back and, you know, prove a point. Yeah, redeem himself and prove a point. And for that to be snatched away from him less than 24 hours before he could do it, man, it was.
Well, hey, that's just like what's happening with these Olympics.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
If you go to our site on the track and field, when you push Kansas City and it drops down, the gentleman that's doing some of the interviews, he was supposed to go when we boycotted the Russian Olympics.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and didn't get a chance to go. And you know, a lot in my lifetime when I ran, it wasn't you go like now. You got athletes that go to 3 Olympics. It was like you had that one shot.
Yeah.
And you missed that shot.
You know if you're gonna get it again. Yeah, right.
Yeah. and it's heartbreaking, but I'm pretty sure that the young man understood how important it is with this virus going around, that this was necessary. Right. It's bigger than him, it's bigger than you, bigger than me.
Right, right. I think the trip back, when we were on the way back, I had an opportunity to sit down and, like, after it had sunk in, he was able to, you know, I don't know if he went back to his room and cried, or I don't know, but, right. You know, after he got to, you know, deal with his emotions on the ride back 8 hours, you know, we had an opportunity to talk and kind of like talk through a lot of that, you know, and it was an opportunity for me to tell him, you know, like, things don't always go your way, brother. You know, you got to have a plan B. You got to be ready to, you know, yeah, and a plan C, because you never know what'll happen, you know. So it was an opportunity for us to really like rap and kind of like meet.
Hey, Coach, how tight are you with your boys and your team?
Oh man, I kind of tell them they're like, you know, like I said, I got 4 kids of my own, but I kind of look at my kids, my athletes, as my kids. You know, we talk a lot. Even athletes that have graduated, they either come back every year or we kind of like have some kind of, you know, phone conversation. So I love them. You know, I love Central State. I love track and field. So naturally, when they become one of my athletes, I love them too. So I keep in contact with them. We kind of tight. We have a good time while we have practice and, you know, while we're traveling. And I think it's important, you know. I think it's important.
And winding this up, what would you have to say to some prospective recruits that you would like them take a look at your program?
Well, I think Central State is a wonderful place to be, besides in our track and field program. I think our track and field program is great. Central State is a wonderful place to be, just because, one, I'm a graduate from Central State. I understand the whole Central State HBCU experience. We're a big family or a small family, whatever you need. But inside of that, you know, we are a family within a family. You know, the track team is a family within the scope of a family. And so I take care of my athletes, but I have relationships with other athletes that are not on my team and other students on campus, because that's the way we're made up. Central State is made up. So I think that in pertaining to my program, we have this acronym for me and my athletes have. We have C&G, and that just reminds us of our goals. That's to win conference, to win nationals, and then for everybody to graduate. So all of our decisions, our practices, our study tables, whatever we are doing is guided by those 3 acronyms right there. So because we'll be conference champions individually and as a team. We want to be national champions individually and as a team, and we want everybody to graduate. So that's kind of what I wanted to get out there to those recruits.
All right, Coach. And wrapping up, as always, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
Thanks, sir.
All right.
This program is brought to you by the City of Fountains Coaches Association.